Three things that all leaders should be doing today: ask, listen, and invest. We need to be curious. We need to ask our colleagues, how are you doing? It's stressful right now. Tell me how you're doing. I really want to know. I've got to listen on multiple levels, not just to get to my next point, but to hear what's really going on with you. And then also invest. I think leaders today need to be investing in their people.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Heart Inspired, the show dedicated to highlighting individuals in their pursuit of authentic leadership. We peel back the layers to uncover the roadblocks we all face, explore the actions we can take, and how to persevere towards the best version of ourselves. It is my hope that you'll be inspired by their story and gain some insights to help you in your own journey. Randy Hain is the founder and president of Serviam Partners and the co-founder of the Leadership Foundry. In today's episode, Randy will share his thoughts on the assumptions made about emerging leaders. We will explore the impact of information overload and what positive leaders should be focusing on today. Please welcome my guest, Randy Hain. Welcome, Randy. Thank you so much for joining us today on the show.
Oh, thanks, Michelle. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
I've been reading your books. I've read two so far. Well, one and a half. I'm almost finished with the second one. And I just love the format. I love what your style is and how you frame things for leaders, especially emerging leaders as well. And we're in a time when it's so important to make sure that we're mentoring and coaching them so that they could be the best version of themselves. So I would love to start with you. And in this series, we're going to talk about some things that are challenging for diverse group of individuals, especially how we nurture them into a leadership position. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into your career today.
Yeah, absolutely. So my, work career began after University of Georgia, 89. Spent 6 years in operations with a national retailer, really learned a lot about business. Got very interested as I was running operations in the talent side of business. And when the company was bought by a bigger competitor, I had an opportunity to pursue a new opportunity. And I was recruited by a company called Waffle House. So $2 billion restaurant company based here in Atlanta. And they brought me in originally to be the director of recruiting. And it was interesting because they were looking for an operations guy who didn't have any recruiting experience, who was interested in it. And I said, I must be the only one. So,
That's interesting.
and shortly after I got there, the person that recruited me left, and I was the vice president of people for Waffle House for about 3.5 years. So very young age, late 20s, early 30s. I was very fortunate to run recruiting, training, and diversity for this company, and I was an officer. And I love the work. I learned a lot, Michelle. Fabulous experience. Because of that, I'm not afraid of anything. That I could tell stories all day. But I was also traveling too much, and I really wasn't being present for my family. I was always on an airplane. So I left. I was recruited to a national executive search firm as their managing partner, and ran that company for about 13 years. And it was during this time that I was working for this much smaller boutique search firm that I was able to get some more life work balance, really have time to focus on my family, which is always my priority. And I started writing books and getting very engaged in coaching. We worked with C-level executives at the Fortune 5000, so I had a chance to not only consult with them and work with them, but also to coach them and guide them. And as you know from other search firms you probably have dealt with, I was interviewing hundreds, maybe thousands of people every year, which gives you an interesting perspective. So that became really the foundation for me to 10 years ago start Serviam Partners. And all I do now is executive coaching, leadership development, still write books. My claim to fame is I'm Sandra's husband, Alex and Ryan's dad, and I write books and I get to coach people. But I'm one of those people that has more fun than anybody you'll meet. I just really enjoy my work, and I'm really grateful for the experiences that have led me here.
So family first, I love that. From spending more time with your family, being in this leadership, do you ever find that there are things that happen at home that just are so valuable for the work you do in corporate?
Absolutely. I'm one of those people that firmly believes in the concept of the integrated life. So
Mm,
I do not live in silos. I am the same person at home that I am at work, that I am in mass on Sunday. I bring myself, the authentic version of myself, to every aspect of my life. So, absolutely, the way that I parent often shows up in the way that I lead, and vice versa. I try to be consistent in all areas and they blend. It's not three different personalities for me. So, I totally agree that they are connected.
That's so great because I've experienced it and I think I've heard it for sure from others that they're different. They put on a different game face when they're in the workplace as opposed to home and separate the two.
Yeah, and I think that shows up, especially as we get older, in
Mm,
ways that can be a little toxic.
yeah,
When you try to live two or three separate lives, ultimately, that's not sustainable.
for
And I think
sure.
we learn how to do that at a young age when we try to fit in with the cool kids and we pretend to be someone we're not.
Yeah.
And it only gets worse as we get older. But listen, I get exhausted trying just to be me. So I can't
Yeah.
imagine trying to be three me's. I encourage your audience, just be yourself, be authentic.
Me, myself, and I, the three leaders.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Tell us a little bit about your passion for working with emerging leaders and what are some of the things that you feel are so important for them to be aware of?
Yeah, I really value my time working with young or emerging leaders. I think there is such an opportunity, but quite frankly, an obligation for our generation to
Mhm.
invest in that group of aspiring leaders. They're going to run the world very soon.
Mm,
And I think and I say we, I'm thinking Gen X and baby boomers, I think we need to be very thoughtful about not getting frustrated or angry or pointing our finger. Instead, let's reach out and say, hey, we've got something valuable to offer. We'd like to help. And I don't see that happening nearly as much as it should. So when I get a chance to be on college campuses, I'm really blessed to get to do that, or occasionally work with the younger team members underneath a senior leader I may be working with. I always jump at that chance because
mm,
it's not that I, have all the answers, but I can't wait to engage. I want to hear what they have to say. I'm learning from them too, but I also want to give them the benefit, hopefully, of a little hard-earned wisdom. I'm 56 and 35 years into my career. I've learned a few things that I can share that might prevent you from committing having disaster in your career. Maybe I can help you with that. So
yeah.
I write on that topic a lot about, looking back, thinking about the past, and then, learning from that. And I try to convey that to younger audiences.
Any of the situations or trainings that you're doing, what's the dynamic? Is there a diverse group, more men, more female, anyone with special requirements or different learning modalities?
It's interesting. So, I would say that I've always served a very diverse and eclectic audience, but you may find this very interesting. If you look back at all of my clients, I actually did this about 2 years ago. So I used to have a number, it's probably not accurate now. The majority of clients I've worked with are female.
Oh,
So
okay.
I've typically worked with more women leaders. And I suspect, and I've actually asked a few why they would prefer to work with me. It's because maybe I don't try to ask women to be someone they're not. I encourage them to be themselves and to be
Yeah.
authentic to who they are. I don't feel that women need to emulate their male counterparts. I think they need to live in their strengths and excel. And I think having been married for 28 years and having worked for and having been raised by a wonderful lady named Sandy, that was my mother when she passed away a decade ago. She was a working mom, and I learned a lot from her. So I've always had a lot of female clients because I help them excel as who they are. I think I've also worked in a pretty diverse category when it comes to race. I think that I've always been really interested in working with anybody that's looking to grow and get better. And I've always, I guess, had a sensitivity and a desire to help anyone that's looking to grow. And I've run across some amazing, diverse people that are looking and they're hungry to grow. And I always gravitate to that kind of person. So again, eclectic and diverse mix of folks I've worked with, and I'm grateful.
In organizations today, do you see that there is a pattern that's breaking to allow more diverse people find their voice and be mentored and to grow within the workplace today?
I have a bit of a contrarian opinion about this, and I'll share it with you if you don't mind.
Sure.
So I definitely feel like there is an encouragement to
Hmm.
be yourself. But I think that's where companies often stop short. They encourage the diversity of expression, but they don't necessarily give it a productive outlet. I don't see us really doing a great job of giving that younger generation, that emerging generation, mentors. I don't know if that's happening as efficiently and effectively as it could.
Hmm.
So I think that we're all about, hey, be yourself, but I don't think we go to the next step and the step beyond, which is now we have a business to run. How can we help? How can we tap into your uniqueness and also help the company achieve its objectives? Because at the end of the day, we still have to be a productive and profitable enterprise, but
Right,
we need to harness their individuality to get there. It's not enough to say, hey, Michelle, you do you, and it's all great. That's
right.
part of it. The rest of it, I think we still need some work.
Yeah, I think that there's that recipe that they say, set up to fail.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good job doing this. But then when they get to that next level, they need that extra help, support, mentorship, coaching, and it's just kind of falling flat.
Yeah, one of the things
Yeah.
that you mentioned earlier that you had been reading my books, one of the chapters you probably came across in Essential Wisdom was the chapter on candor. And I
Yeah.
think that, I've always been someone that's been able to practice respectful candor. So I don't care who you are, what your age is or title, I will always treat you with kindness and respect and courtesy, but also tell you what I see. But then I
Mm,
have an obligation once I've pointed it out to also help you but get better at that.
right.
So I think that's a recipe that all of us might want to follow is let's engage, have the right conversations, but also be helpful.
Yeah, feedback is wonderful, but sometimes the recipient may be a little defensive,
Sure.
not want to see it, have the blinders on. So you have to proceed with caution when you're giving somebody feedback. Almost ask permission. Are you open to suggestions or feedback?
I love asking permission. It's one of the greatest ways to open the door.
Y-
And conversely, we also want to give people permission to be candid with us.
Yeah, you're right about that, about, being comfortable to take criticism from people who you don't know if you really want to grow.
Yeah.
I had some discomfort with that with that chapter.
Yeah, it's probably not, but I think it's also one of the biggest challenges in corporate America. Every company's got their version of blank nice, you know,
Yes.
where we're very polite, but we have the real conversation at the water cooler.
Yeah.
I'll text you later with what I really think. And that's counterproductive, in fact, negative and toxic at
Yeah,
times. So really be
exactly.
careful.
Exactly. I was just doing a talk on the power of apology. And when you say, yeah, sure, no problem when somebody apologizes, and the next thing you know, you're gossiping about that person because you really didn't accept their apology.
Yeah.
And then it comes full circle. It comes right back to you and it's toxic. It's
Yeah.
vicious cycle for sure.
I feel like I have an obligation to anyone I meet for you not to leave my presence without you knowing what I really think. Obviously there's a time and a place for everything, but I think Peggy Noonan with the Wall Street Journal said that candor implies equality. It's how
Mm,
true friends treat each other.
yeah.
I treat everybody as a friend, and I'm going to tell you what I think respectfully, and I invite the same. And, it doesn't always work out perfectly, but it's a great way to live.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. What are some of the assumptions that educators have regarding young folks and their readiness into the workplace? What do you think is missing so we can get them on the right foot after they leave school?
So that's an interesting question, and I see this. I speak on a lot of college campuses, and I work with a lot of seniors in college when I get the opportunity. I volunteer a lot there, and I see a mixed bag out there. Some schools, their career readiness sort of stops at resume prep. Will help you get an
Mm,
interview. Here's how you use LinkedIn, and those are all certainly helpful things. But I think what we often see a big gap in, where I think schools could do a better job, and maybe corporations could partner with them.
yeah,
How do we get them ready for what I call professional readiness? How do we help them show up, understanding how corporate structures work? How do we voice our opinions? How do we build relationships? One of the chapters in my book, Essential Wisdom, is how do you build professional credibility? And I
mm,
talk about 10 steps on how young leaders, young graduates about to come into the workforce can really focus on being seen as credible.
yeah,
Something simple as communication follow up. If I email you and you take 5 days to get back to me, you have lost credibility in my eyes. You're
yeah,
dismissing me. You have a good reason, maybe, but because you didn't respond, even with "I'll get back to you later," that dinged your credibility. So I think it's that professional readiness. That's the
Yeah.
gap that I see.
And I wonder, when you just said that, I wonder if it has to do with how the different generations mainstream of communication today, like
Mhm.
text is everything.
Mhm.
Text is not professional as far as, that kind of a dialogue. In some cases, it might be once you're in-house, but I don't see it that way. And so I think that that might be some of the challenges in the different omni channels of how we all communicate with one another.
But doesn't that come back to a little bit the idea of candor? So if
Yeah,
I'm a leader and I've got young professionals joining my team, I've got a couple of options here. I could be frustrated with your insistence on using text, not say anything, and just get more and more angry. I
right.
could just use email and not explain the reason for it. Or I could explain from the very beginning in the interview process, here's how we communicate here. I need you to follow these norms. I'm not dismissing that you love text. That's your business, but I want you to know that we will always do business together via this channel.
Yeah,
And you get to set the rules if you're the boss. But
yeah,
sometimes we're not communicating that effectively and we just get frustrated and there's confusion.
yeah. And then again, not communicated sets up for failure. And then it's like, what did I do wrong? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what should positive leaders focus on today? Give us some of the nuggets from what you've written or what you've coached in your business today. What are some of the things that they should be focusing on?
In the new book I wrote, Upon Reflection,
Mm,
I talk about three things that all leaders should be doing today. And I'd say today, but also over the last 15 years and beyond. And those three things are very simple: ask, listen, and invest.
yeah,
We need to be curious. We need to ask our colleagues, how are you doing? Don't just say, having a good day. It's a
yeah,
little bit more about, hey, it's stressful right now. Tell me how you're doing. I really want to know. And
mm,
listen, the second part, I've got to listen on multiple levels, not just to get to my next point, but to hear what's really going on with you. And then also invest. I think leaders today need to be investing in their people. That can take many forms. But if
mm,
I were to start anywhere, the foundation would be ask, listen, and invest. But I think we have another opportunity that's related to this, and I think it's modeling good behavior.
yeah,
It's very hard for any leader to look at a team and say, "You guys aren't doing it right. I don't like how you're doing this or acting this way," if we're not modeling the right behavior.
yeah.
So I think ask, listen, invest, and model would be my four maxims that I would throw at you.
Those are really great. Let's kind of change it up a little bit here and move over to we talk about mainstream and emerging leaders. One of the things that I have discovered is that there's even more on LinkedIn. You see people with different learning disabilities or learning challenges. I'm not sure if the right word there are struggling or trying to find their way into the workforce,
Mhm.
those who can. What can we do to help bridge that gap, or what can we do to help some of those? And what's your experience with that?
So, my personal entry into this conversation would be the fact that I have a 25-year-old son named Alex who has high functioning autism. So, Alex is a wonderful and blessed young man, but he's got a lot of social quirkiness. And he didn't go to college. He went to a great private school. He's very smart. But my wife and I really helped him focus on his independence. And he has worked for a global retailer for 7 years. He
Wow.
also works at our parish on Monday, so he's got 2 jobs, and he
Good for
works
him.
he's doing great. So my sort of entry point, as I said, is understanding, the individual and what their needs are, and we have done our very best to help Alex thrive with his challenges, but also to harness his gifts. And if
Mm,
I'm an employer out there, I am looking at this neurologically diverse, educationally challenged, or some fundamentally challenged area of their lives, and I'm looking at this candidate that's before me, and I'm thinking, how can I make it work? Not you don't fit my perfect checklist, but how can I harness your gifts? What do you bring to the table that we could use? But how can I also help you be successful with your challenges? And I do think that companies more and more are making that work. I would love to applaud Google. Google does an amazing job of hiring neurologically diverse people. Asperger's, there are a lot of young adults with Asperger's that go to Google. Brilliant, great
Yeah.
with computers. Maybe they're socially awkward, but they are
Hmm.
amazing at what they do. So there are other technology companies like Google that I think that harness that power. So I think let's find a way to harness the gifts, uh, deal with the challenges in a positive way, and recognize that all of these individuals have something of value to offer. I rail against any time I see, and I see it a lot, where people are marginalized and they're just never given the opportunity.
Yeah.
And if that had happened to my son Alex, that would have been a real challenge and a travesty.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree with you more. And in fact, that same compassion to be able to harness somebody's special gifts with those who have a different learning challenge or learning path, those who are mainstream also have special gifts.
Mhm.
And I think that we kind of play that, oh, well, you don't fit into this box, and so you're dismissed, or you don't fit into what we, our vision. And so there's a lot of people with special gifts that are overlooked.
There's a chapter in Upon Reflection, you may have come across it. It was Acts of Kindness, the Goodness of People, and Lessons
Hmm.
Learned. And I charted out the history, the chronological sort of timeline, I guess, of Alex getting his opportunity,
Yep.
but the people that came out of the woodwork to just invest in our son, help him. To this day, he works with this wonderful small village of colleagues that all help him be successful. And he adds a lot of value, but it took all these people, many of whom we never met before, that out of their kindness said, here's a young man, we need to figure out how to help him.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in there's a lot more kindness in the world than there is evil. And I think we need to find a way to let that kindness come out. There's a lot of good out there.
Well, I'm really happy to hear that you are fortunate to have such great mentors and coaches to help Alex in his journey. That's really special. And he sounds like he's doing wonderful with 2 jobs and having a purpose and staying focused, and a wonderful family, obviously, to support him. So that's
Well,
great.
a lot of if you talk to families of special needs children, I think those of us that really just value the gifts of our children always see our kids as blessings, not burdens.
Yeah.
And we always want what's best for our children. And when
Yeah.
there's an employer out there willing to give our kids a chance, gosh, well, first of all, I can tell you I'm very loyal to that retailer, as you
Well, you
mentioned.
have to be.
We don't buy anything unless it's from those guys. So
You're right, right. And you get the employee discount, right?
no, we don't. Alex does, but we don't.
Oh.
And it might seem odd if he buys a washing machine from his company, but anyway,
That's too funny. Well, Randy, this has been really, really great. Thank you so much for being on the show and providing our listeners and myself with all your nuggets of wisdom regarding leadership. It's really great to explore and have this conversation with you. So I appreciate it, and all the best. And we will have in the show notes all the links to your books, the 2 that I'm reading now. Well, I finished Upon Reflection, which was great. I love the fact that you have a little inspiration in the beginning of each chapter, and it gets right down to the nitty gritty. And then it's here's what you need to know, and really quick reads, but lots of information. And then the essential wisdom is the other one that I'm almost done with. So I appreciate it.
thank you so much for having me, Michelle. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Yes, same here. Be well.
You do. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you again for listening. We'll be back soon with a brand new episode of the Heart Inspired podcast. Until then, I'm your host, Michelle Delgado. I welcome you to support the show by rating us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. To learn more about HeartMetrics Consulting, book a strategy call by visiting the website at heartmetrics.com.